Hello, my name is Frances Bench, and thank you for joining Charisse Urbano's class on Exploring Diversity. You are about to watch a class lecture on GLBT issues. For those of you not familiar with what GLBT stands for, it means gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender. Denise and Bob are a married couple who are going to share the story of their son's coming out process. They offer a parent's perspective and insight on how to effectively deal with GLBT issues. You are also going to hear from Jill, who will discuss what it's like to be transgendered as she shares the story of how she made her transition from M to F. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the lecture.
It wasn't on purpose, he didn't mean to, but we discovered something he was looking at that we asked him about, and he tearfully said, "I think I like guys." And that started us down a path that has really changed our whole life, I guess. At that point, he said that, but then he kind of backtracked and said, well, maybe I'm bisexual, I don't know. And for the next couple of years, he really didn't want to talk about it very much. And so we didn't push him because he was trying to figure it out. And but yeah, and so were we.
We don't want to talk about it too much either.
But the first thing we said to him was, it doesn't matter, we love you anyway. You know, that's fine. However, our acceptance wasn't quite the acceptance that we have today. We had a lot of learning to do. So anyway, he struggled personally and in school and socially over the next couple of years, and he just kept going downhill, having more problems. We didn't know how to help him. And so eventually we had heard about PFLAG Tri-Cities, and so we went to a meeting with much trepidation. We were afraid to walk into the first meeting, not sure would we see somebody there we knew, and then they would know. I mean, the thing about when a family member comes out or a child comes out, the parents also have to come out, and so that was what was happening with us at that point. And so we walked into the first meeting, and we felt at home from the first day. We felt such acceptance there. And Kent was still saying maybe he was bisexual at that point. And I think it was the first or second meeting, there were a couple of other teenage boys there, and he said that, and they all started laughing, and they said, well, we're all bisexual at first. So, within a couple of months, he had actually accepted his gay orientation, and that's what he was identifying with. Started feeling a lot better about himself on some levels, but it took him a while. It took him about 6 months until he had another friend challenge him and say, Kent, what's the matter with you anyway? Are you gay or what? And he said, well, yeah, I am. And so then he was out at school.
We had talked about that prior to him doing that because he was being picked on, bullied. Some kids actually threw stones at him. So he was living in a certain amount of fear every day. And being in the closet, you worry that somebody is going to find out about you, and then how do you deal with that? And we just decided that for Kent, we needed to empower him, and he needed to be able to decide when he wanted to come out and to whom he wanted to come out to. So we just said, whenever you're ready, that's fine, and let's take the power away from the people that were trying to beat him up and give it back to him, which is what he did that day. Now it helped for a while, but then after the initial shock, everybody still starts picking on him because he's gay. And he's out, and it's a small school, and nobody else is out. So now the next 4 years of high school were difficult for him. He struggled grade-wise. He struggled with friends, very few male friends, mostly girls. Grades struggled because he was depressed. So we took him to the doctor, had him treated for depression, decided that and that helped. The medication helped. I'm a pharmacist, so we talked through everything. We figured out what we wanted to do. I talked to the doctor. We made a decision, started the therapy, and it helped. But then he decided he wanted to be normal. He wanted to be a normal kid. Didn't want to have to take a pill. So he stopped. And back down the hill he goes. So now we're back on track. Struggled through high school. His junior year, I wasn't sure he was going to be able to graduate. But he pulled it together, got enough passing grades to get through high school, went to college. His first year in college has been miraculous. He's no longer afraid. When he was in high school, he never went anywhere at night. He did not have a social life. He didn't walk home from school, even though it was probably less than 15 minutes to walk home. He was afraid. So he would wait and catch a ride with a friend. Never went home by himself. Never went out at night. Rarely went out at night. Only to a friend's house, never to a social event at school.
Yeah, this was all because of bullying that he experienced, mostly verbal harassment at school.
You just don't expose yourself to that kind of treatment if you don't have to.
Can I ask why they didn't intervene at school? They just allowed this to happen for that many years?
They did intervene in a sense. Part of it was that Kent didn't want to make a big deal out of it. He was trying to just let it slide, and hopefully that it would, once he said that, yes, I'm gay, what's the big deal, that people would leave him alone. Well then, day after day after day, he walks down the hall and he hears fag, queer, every day. So it takes us a while to figure out what's going on, because he's not telling us this. So we have to see what effect it has on him and then kind of work back and say, what's going on? Is there a problem? And then he tells us these things. I had been on the school board at this particular high school, and so I knew the administrators, and I kind of knew who to talk to and how to talk to them. And so we went to them and said, look, this is what's going on. We need to do something. And it was amazing because less than a week later it stopped. I mean, when he walked down the hall, it stopped. Now, his junior year was the year that Proposal 2 passed in Michigan, banning gay marriage or any other union for a similar purpose. So, of course, in the social studies classes, they were all talking about the political climate in Michigan, and this stuff all came up. And so here's my son on one side of the room and 28 other kids who just came from church on the other side of the room. So that was a problem for him because he was very angry. Everybody was picking on him. He was kind of the victim, and everybody else was
Well, I heard
just
things
there,
like,
so.
you offend me, and...
Yeah.
Specifically him.
Yeah.
Everything everyone's ever done.
Right.
What did the school do that made it stop in a week? That's impressive.
Well, I asked the principal, the high school principal, because I knew him personally, and I said, this was like a year after that. I said, I don't know what you did, but I would really like to know. And I honestly believe that he just went to teachers and picked out the students that were actually doing that and said, this is going to stop.
Right.
And then told faculty members that you're going to watch for this and this and this, and when you hear this, then you pull those kids aside. And
This principal had a great deal of control of his school. I mean, you could walk down the hall, there was never a piece of paper on the floor, never graffiti. He really had that school under control, and so when he found out about it, he took action, and I don't know.
Wow.
We also went to his individual teachers because he was having some problems in classes and got a lot of support, which surprised us in a small rural town, but they were really great. So. The other half of our story, too, is PFLAG. Then we got really involved in PFLAG, and we're now both on the board of Tri-Cities PFLAG. We are involved in perceptions. We just went to the anti-bullying bill lobby day today in Lansing. That's what our life is right now.
What
Yes.
does PFLAG stand for?
Parents, families, and friends of lesbians and gays.
And you guys want to mention a little bit more about Perceptions for the group?
Okay.
Perceptions is a group in the Saginaw, Bay City, Midland area that it's a social group, but it's also a way for the gay community to interact with the straight community. They do highway cleanup, they do house repairs.
It's also a support group. They have, I don't know if it's weekly or bi-weekly meetings where,
They have speakers come in.
yeah, they support each other in coming out and dealing with their lives. It's a very active group. We have a lot of friends there. So, and now we have one friend in Perceptions, an older gentleman who introduced us to his daughter and said, "Well, they're straight, but they're really like the rest of us. They're not really like most straight people," and that was one of the biggest compliments I could ever have. So.
He's doing great.
Wonderful.
Doing great. He's in the GSA, active in the GSA as a freshman. For spring break, he went to Washington, D.C. and lobbied for ENDA through HRC, which is a human rights campaign. So ENDA is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. There are only 8 states in the country that have laws that prohibit you from being fired because you're gay. Michigan is not one of them. So if you are gay and you haven't told your boss, and your boss happens to be socially conservative, and they find out, they can fire you, and it's legal. You can also be evicted from your house or apartment. So we're working to change that. And at the national level is the easiest way, because then it affects everybody. If we go state by state, it's a long battle. Michigan has a civil rights law. It's the Elliott-Larsen Act, but it does not specify that gays are covered by that law. So we don't have any protections here for gays in Michigan. And now with Proposal 2, that it's domestic partner benefits are in limbo right now until we get the Supreme Court to rule. And given the makeup of the Supreme Court currently, it's probably not going to be favorable for the domestic partners.
Supreme Court or the federal Supreme Court?
Michigan Supreme Court. Now they can, of course, appeal that to the U.S. Supreme Court, which doesn't look real good either, but we're hopeful that maybe we can come up with something. But the Non-Discrimination Act would really help in employment. At least if you come out, which is what we need to increase acceptance of people, is for other people to understand that the person that you know and respect and like and have talked to is gay. But if they don't feel safe being able to come out and say that, you'll never know. Because some closets are really big and really deep, and you'll never know. But trust me, they're out there, and they're great people.
Actually,
Yes.
Across the board here. So, thank you. We're going to have lots of questions for you guys, and we're going to go to Jill, and then we're going to open it up wide open for anybody that has any questions at all.
I would just like to say that it's kind of a shame that Kent had, we'll say, the courage, obviously the courage and the strength to stand by himself. And if he's divided between 20 other children, let's say on the other side of the classroom, I mean, out of averages that there should have been more over on Kent's side. And hopefully you would hope that at least some of the other children would have some of that same courage that it takes for him to have done what he did. I obviously didn't have it when I was his age, but they could at least stand up for him and let other people know that it really doesn't matter. So some way, too bad it just can't commingle, obviously with time, but I think parental influence in that same direction would be pretty awesome. So obviously, okay, I didn't have that courage. Clinically, I'm defined as preoperative transsexual. So I belong with a pretty big umbrella, but then I'm a minority within the umbrella. So being transsexual, obviously M to F. There's also F to M. You could be pre-op transsexual. You could be post-op and have completed all your surgery. You could also be non-operative. I've kind of slid that in there, which was kind of a gray area. I've been a participant of the University of Michigan's Comprehensive Gender Services Program. So I've got many hours of psychological review, individual group therapy, under the belt. They're very conservative, and I intentionally set up enough challenges with myself to even be more conservative. I have 2 beautiful children. My son is 16. My daughter will be 18. So, my concern, even within my journey, is them. I have come out to them. My daughter finally just saw me after about a year, like a week ago, and she's like, "Oh, I've worried and stressed over nothing." She goes, "I'm glad I didn't wait any longer." So it seemed to work. My son, he's got a more difficult road, to say as a boy, trying to define himself. They always tend to, hanging with his friends is, tend to be a little more masculine, or trying to, ward off any of those, any attacks. The only thing I was good at when I was maybe Kent's age was hiding, and I could just hide and blend. And I studied a lot, to watch men or boys to say, see how they act. I mean, I could kind of follow that. I'm waiting for my Oscar. I don't know if it'll ever be here, but because I came out to my parents just the end of October, and they claimed they didn't know. I was it got put off. It just needed to come out, out of respect. They prefer not to talk about it, and still don't. But
and when did you tell your children?
April, it was almost a year. Yeah, almost a year. And the thing just came across my mind is that, I'm not afraid and not at this given moment to give my life for my children. And so I tried to explain to them, why would I be afraid to share my life with you? So I think it's been good. It's been better than what I expected. I think anybody's approach or attitude with anything, how you project yourself, is going to make a difference on how people perceive you or receive you. I believe in being positive. It's my journey. It took a long time to accept it. It took a long time to come to terms with it. I think there's a lot of depth differences there. This is something I've known since age 4. How? I don't know. It was there. I knew it was there. It would be like age 4. It would pop up at 7, 9, 11. It's like 14. It's there. It's not going away. And I don't know what to do with this. I didn't know how to speak about it. I thought that I was given enough signals. In my mind, I've got flares, I got flags, I'm trying to, have my parents, somehow they're going to see this. They're going to ask me, but it didn't really happen. So I just figured, okay, well, I don't know, some way. I thought at least I was positive enough to determine somewhere, somehow in the future, it'll figure itself out. So I just figured, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I guess I'm at a point where I have the courage to be proud, to be trans. We don't like to really, I'm proud to be trans. I don't know, I don't fall under either side. I don't care. I'm just going to do me and my thing. And, I'm going to try and be positive throughout the world. I will help whoever I can. Certainly safety issues are a big concern. I've got a concern for younger trans. There's really some serious, unfortunate incidents, with the younger trans, and it's not even something that's usually even listed as a hate crime, which is a shame. So it doesn't get much notice to it. They're trying to change that. Chrysler's a big part of that. Chrysler has a diversity week. That's absolutely awesome. The presentation and the panel that was there, Leo Romo came down and met with me. What a sweet man. And I mean, seating for 200. The panel that was there, it's like, if you had to pay them, I have no idea. They came from New York. They came all over the place. Absolutely awesome. Breathtaking. You would want it to last, again, 4 hours, like I would like to go. But it's just, and there had to be like maybe 4 dozen people, and it was just like, it would just be, if it could be required by, schools, at least, from schools to be there, just to partake and to listen to that, because Chrysler, I guess, plays up, they've got a whole hall, my friend tells me, they show somebody has had, SRS, sexual reassignment surgery, or you can consider it gender reassignment surgery, and they've done this, which is monumental for Chrysler, and they have all these people's pictures that line, and I thought, that's a lot of courage there, because I still have and will always have, safety issues and being concerned, and, I watch, you don't usually find me without a friend, kind of thing. I'm not paranoid, I don't think, but, I'm just trying to be careful, and I'm also feeling like I would like to teach, younger trans to be careful, because you can get lost within this, you get lost within your feelings, your heart. All you want to do is go forward, be free, but you still have to have regards for the world, and I think the world is great. I think there's a lot of good in it. You just have to watch out for, what potential bad could be there.
Let's open it up. Questions from everybody.
My son is gay, and when he came out and shared with me, and to this day he's never told his dad.
Okay.
My daughters and I told my husband, and he still won't really talk about it. But he says, Mom, I knew from the time I was about 5 years old. And this is, how do you know at 5 years old? That path. I'm thinking back to when I was in kindergarten at 5 years old. I didn't know where I was going or who we were going to be, but that's what he has always said. He says, I knew from the time I was about 5 years old that this was my path. And he has a beautiful partner. Joel and Kevin have been together probably almost 4 years now, and they live in Grand Rapids.
Great.
But the same thing, it's always a safety issue. Mm-hmm. They never go anywhere without somebody with them. They're always partnered up.
That was our biggest concern too.
Oh yeah.
I can accept him being gay, but he's going to get beat up.
A gay basher getting a phone call and having my son be in the hospital because somebody who doesn't understand and doesn't accept people for who they are, and to just take it out on him.
That's a big word. Big word.
I think everybody's journey is different. I don't know that I knew when I was 5 and 6 and 8 years old that I was
doing it at 6 or 8 years old.
But when I look back in retrospect, I used to have crushes when I was that age. I mean, you're not really sexually attracted to somebody, but you have these little crushes. And when I think back now, all my crushes were on females. So now it should start to make sense. All the way through high school, I dated guys. I had wonderful boyfriends. I stayed with them for, I had long-term relationships with guys. I even had a guy who wanted to marry me. I'm like, no, I'm going to go off to school first, and then maybe I'll think about it. But I think the biggest reason I said that is because, there wasn't a lot of chemistry. Well, there wasn't much chemistry at all. Okay, I loved him. He was a great guy, but it was just like, if this is all there is, then I'll just go to school first, finish all my things, and then I'll worry about that. So I did the experiment, several times. When I went away to school, then you're in an environment where you can do that experimentation. I think I was also in a traditional home where I would have been afraid to come out in my family's home. But it didn't take me but my freshman year, about 2 months into being at Bowling Green, when I started to develop a relationship with a woman, and I was really scared. I mean, there were no homosexuals in my high school that I knew of. Of course, there were people there, but people weren't out of the closet then. And so, I was a little bit scared, and things kind of went along, and then it just was like this. The first time that a woman kissed me, it was like fireworks. All these guys had kissed me. I had all these other relationships, and there was like nothing. And the first time a woman kissed me, it's like, oh my goodness, this is what it's all about. I get it now. And that's just the kiss. So, I mean, we're talking, I'm not even going to go to the rest of it. But I do want people to understand. Yeah, I'm being, especially on tape, right? The reason I say this is I do want people to understand who aren't, that aren't same-sex attracted, that it is such a difference. I even went back trying to do the experiment after that with guys. I'm a scientist, so I called it the experiment. And, it just was never there. It didn't matter. I mean, I always thought, well, it's just not the right guy. And then you hear guys say that. Well, you just haven't been with the right guy yet. It's like, okay, I'll give you a chance. No. It's just not there. I'm being silly, but there is a huge difference.
That's exactly what Joel and I are so close. He'll be 25 in May, and I can be in the shower, and he'll say, pull the curtain, I need to talk to you. And he'll come in and just talk. And he did that a couple years ago at Christmas when he was already with Kevin. And he finally had come out and said, I just want you to know, Mom. He says, I did have sex with a woman. And I'm in the shower going, yay! And he goes, it was the most disgusting thing that ever happened. And I said, I popped my head. I said, are you serious? And I said, maybe it wasn't the right one. And he goes, Mom. I said, okay, I will. But as a mother, did you feel you played a part in this? Did you feel guilty?
A little bit at first. I mean, you think, why? Because I was stupid. I was ignorant at first. I didn't know why it happened. Yeah. And, you hear all these stupid things, people saying, oh, it's an overbearing mother, it was an uninvolved father, all these things. And so you look back and say, did we do any of that to him? But then, you think about it, a 12-year-old who cried when he told us, I think I like guys, because he thought we would not love him. Right. He did not choose it. Right. There's no way he chose it. There's no way that he wasn't born with that. And so it didn't take us that long to get over that part.
Do you guys think, in the younger generation, there's not moderates? It's either people accept it or people don't? Because I see it, from back when I talk, I have friends that are homosexual, and my grandma is not very accepting of it. My mom is more accepting, and people my age, I seem to see, they're a lot more accepting of it than, the people that were my grandma's friends.
Absolutely. People our age, around 50, are the worst.
But that's a generality.
It's a generality, but
my parents are in their 70s, and they're fine. They're fine.
Actually, grandparents of gay kids, I think, are better than parents. Well, life experience.
Yeah.
And they don't feel that immediate blame. It's 2 levels away.
Right.
So it's
I know I was raised in a very strong, strict Catholic home. Mm-hmm. And so you have an awful lot that is embedded in your brain that you have to de-learn.
Yeah. So did you feel that way? Did you feel
I felt guilty. Oh, yeah. I said to Joel, what did I do wrong?
And the best way to get over that guilt, I think, and this is from years and years of grappling with it myself, is to recognize that as long as that child grows up healthy and happy, then they have a wonderful life, and there's no reason to feel guilty. There's no reason to feel guilty about bringing up a wonderful child who, does things for other people, has great character, and there you go. So.
And I totally agree with that. Like I said, I felt a little guilty at first, and then I got over it quickly, but then I felt the judgment from other people. I was afraid to tell other people because I was afraid they were going to say it about me.
You see, I wasn't afraid of what somebody else would think of me. I was worried about how they were going to treat Joel. Then that's when I really became even more overprotective, because it was like I didn't want him telling my mother, because I thought my mother is a very judgmental person, and I thought for sure she would totally have ousted him. Mm-hmm. And she didn't at all. She's 78, and that's the woman that shocked me.
Yeah. Oh, my dad was the same way. He was very homophobic. We were shaking our boots when we went to tell them. Right. And first thing he said was, well, have you taken him for counseling? Like, we're going to change him. But as we talked about it, by the end of that day, he was starting to change. And then we gave him Mel White's book, Stranger at the Gate, which is about a minister who was married with 2 children, and knew he was gay from the time he was a teenager, but he struggled with it for years and years and years, and finally divorced and has a partner.
A ghostwriter for Pat
anyway.
Robertson and Jerry Falwell.
Yeah. Anyway, my dad read that book, and it was just like he flipped a switch. Now he understood it, and so.
I was really proud of him too. He sat down and he wrote a letter. There are 7 of us in my family, and he wrote a letter to everybody on my side of the family and to my husband's side, and mailed it out, and shared with why he didn't like going to family functions and different things, because people would always say, when are you going to get a girlfriend? When are you going to settle down?
Yeah.
And it always made him very uncomfortable. And so he sat down and explained why he didn't want to partake and who he was, and the ball became in their court. And I have to say, out of everybody, there was only 2 that were not receptive.
Well, that's really good.
And again, once you know somebody, it becomes much easier to accept them because you see all the good parts of them, and now you're trying to reconcile this one little thing with all of these other good things, and you realize that that doesn't matter so much when all this other stuff is there. So I think it's better for the community as a whole when people can come out and be honest.
What do you? I have worked in Saginaw Public School, elementary as well as high school. Did you get any help at all from social workers, sociologists in school?
Yeah, when Ken was in junior high and he had the boys throwing rocks at his head, we went to the social worker there who was just wonderful with him. But he wasn't out at that point. They were calling him gay. They perceived him as different, but he wasn't out at that point. There isn't a social worker in our schools that's supposed to treat the general ed students, only special ed students. But she's my friend, and so when he was having some difficulties, he went to her. But
as a community, what do you think that we can do, like as parents, as to make it safer for people? What do you think? What's a step that someone, because you guys said it was always a concern about safety. What is something that we could do or talk about that would not ensure, but help promote it?
See, safety is kind of a broad range. We knew a young man that was in his senior year at a parochial school, had a full ride scholarship at Central Michigan University. The school found out that he was gay and expelled him. See, now that to me is safety, because this kid's whole life now he was watching it go down the drain, because if you don't graduate from high school, you obviously can't go to college. So now we have to try to get him into high school, and most public schools will not accept a transfer student in their senior year because there's too many prerequisites for them to pick up in less than 1 year. Well, I knew the principal, so I made some phone calls, and we got him in, and he graduated, and he's now at Central. But I don't know how you protect those kind of kids. I mean, it's teaching people to accept people for who they are.
right.
He was.
He had a boyfriend, and
Yeah.
I think he told some of his friends that his friends were okay with it, but not the administration.
Maybe it slipped and
Yeah.
so.
It gets difficult when you're watching all of your peers have relationships and enjoying their life in high school, and you can't. So then you start acting on those kind of impulses, and then it gets.
he wasn't hiding it.
But
Yeah.
I think what you can do, though, is speak up. When you hear homophobic remarks, when you hear jokes that are inappropriate, say, I really don't like that when you say that. Straight people need to be advocates for gay people, because they can't, a lot of times it doesn't work when you're the gay person saying, hey, cut that out, that hurts, and some people just don't get it. But if straight allies speak up for them, we have a stronger voice that can maybe have more impact in the general community.
At least with other straight people, you can have more of an impact than the gay person is, because they're already looking down on them.
Right.
You're on equal footing, and when you say that's not right, Just like you would say that if it was a racial issue or a weight issue or anything else. You know, it's all in that same spectrum.
Well, I mean, it was probably 4 years before I told my children, but, you know, and maybe it was in the back of my mind trying to prepare them, but I tried to just, you know, by the time they were 10 or 12 within school, because I think they're educated within school a whole lot earlier and a whole lot better. So I jumped in there the minute I heard something about, they were talking about gay issues or something. So, you know, I just said, well, how do you feel about that? And they weren't really sure. And I said, well, yeah, I just tried to explain, by the time you finish school, you're going to find out that you had a lot of friends. Well, we won't say a lot, but you had friends that were gay, lesbian, or trans, or something similar to that. And you shouldn't see them any differently. If you happen to see, you know, an issue going on and they're picking on somebody, I would tell them. My daughter, I know, would be there. She's tough as nails, as tiny as she is. She wants to protect her brother, and he's bigger than she is now. But to have the strength to stand on your own and don't follow others. You know, you don't see a problem with it, then stand up for that person too. So I don't know. I think it's there. I know it's there with my daughter. My son's probably a little apprehensive, but I think if it came down to it, I know one-on-one, I think he would be okay. And I still actively talk to him about that now. And just hopefully, you know, it's rooting in. I think there's stuff that is rooting in. You know, evolution. You know, I hope it's expanding. When I was their age, you know, society was different. So, you know, all I ever heard from my parents was, what will the neighbors think? What will the neighbors think? I think, I don't live with the frickin' neighbors. It's so PG. Okay. But it drove me crazy.
Deanna, I saw your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah. When Bob was talking about safety and Denise too, when they were talking about, you know, what to do when Jen asked the question, I know at the location where I work at now, we have diversity training. There are several of my coworkers, consider myself, that are gay, lesbian. We don't talk about it because it's a Catholic organization I work for. But we also have several straight employees that are very accepting of us. And we work with juvenile delinquents, and we also have our own private school. And so if we hear anything, we put a kibosh to it. I mean, we are on them like very, very hard. You know, and that's one thing that I'm very grateful for from where I work at. My coworkers that are straight are right on it. They don't pull no punches. I mean, they'll be in the kid's face, and if the kid gets ignorant, they yank the kid away. I mean, it's either you're going to do and follow the program and have respect, or you're gone.
Right. You need to respect all people, but also discussion so they understand.
And we do. We talk about it because we've had several kids that came through there that have been gay, lesbian, and they make fun of them. And I'm like, why are you making fun? You know, because you could be gay. And the kid looks at me, and I'm like, you know. So.
Jerry had a question, and then John.
Well, I was just going to comment on one of the things that we can do as a society is because if you'll remember, for civil rights, it wasn't just black people out there saying we want to change. It was when everyone got on that bandwagon. I'm very fortunate because I am the boss, and because we work with runaway and homeless youth, and the federal government, one of the requirements is that we have our staff trained in dealing with GLPT issues. And so every one of my staff has to go through that training, and naturally there is plenty of diversity training and dealing with the population that we deal with. And I think it has made the place where we work is just that much more better because my staff is trained. And then when other youth come into the facility, because it's a residential facility, and so when other youth come into the facility, then my staff know exactly what to look out for. You know, whether they're dealing with racial discrimination against someone from whatever background or orientation. And so that has really helped our agency. We have to have literature out to reach everyone. And our staff, along with the rest of the agencies that work with that population, are advocates. And we advocate for these changes to make sure that our young people, regardless of their orientation, regardless of their race, have all the rights and privileges So I think as when society gets on board, because you're right, you know, being black, seeing we need to overcome, did not overcome anything. The overcoming didn't come until you got everyone on board. Because if you look at it, if you discriminate against one person, who's to say you're safe? Because if we allow that against any one group of people, then we open ourselves up to be discriminated against. So I think that's what we have to do as a society, is to get everyone on that page and say, we aren't going to tolerate this. You set your personal judgments aside and you work for the betterment of our society. And only then can we truly say that we have all overcame.
Yep.
Good point.
I totally agree. Yep.
Okay.
Become politically active if you see injustice against any group of people. Write letters. Call your congressman.
And if you talk to people who are political activists, they will tell you that 10% of the population can sway a legislator because they don't hear from anybody else. So if you send an email, if you write a letter, if you make a phone call, you can make a difference. And that's what didn't happen before, but...
And who's swaying Michigan?
Well,
that's a good question.
Obviously not me. So
there are lots of websites these days that HRC puts out. I think even PFLAG does a lot of this. Perceptions does a lot of it too, where they send out letters that are already almost pre-typed or pre-written, and they give you the address of the congressman and everything to do, so that it's a really simple process. It's just, you know, if you're on board with that, you can be an advocate and you can do it consistently, and I think that makes a big impact.
Unfortunately, the conservative side of things is more organized and has more money behind it. In Michigan, the American Family Association pushes conservative issues very strongly. The head of that, Gary Glenn, is from Midland, and he goes to all the legislators and he brings this out into the paper about, they're talking about giving these rights to gay people, and Christians don't agree with this, and so this should not, which is not totally true. I consider myself a Christian, and not all Christians feel that way, but that's the way he portrays it, and so a lot of legislators don't want to be seen as against the conservative vote. They don't want to lose their office, their base. So
we're going to go back to John because he had a question before we. John, you were next.
Oh, thank you. One thing I've always been curious about, you said like your son, you would get beat up. Do you think that comes from more hate or more fear? Because I've got friends, for some reason they don't care for gay people. It's their choice, whatever. But they always, for some reason, like, oh, I'm worried he's going to hit on me or something. And that always plays in the back of my head going, is it really more fear or more hate? I was wondering what you guys thought.
I think it's probably a combination. I think a lot of it's fear because they don't understand, and maybe they have, those people that react that strongly may have actually felt a same-sex attraction at some point in their life, and they want to demonstrate that, you know, I am a guy and I can kick your butt, so I will. You know,
I mean, look at Anita Bryant in Case. I mean, she stood on a soapbox against gays, and then, what does she end up doing? Coming out, So you try to over-exaggerate a little bit just to keep everybody looking in another direction. So you gotta kind of, really spend the time to, dig into the source and find out, what seems to be motivating them. I think fear is a lot, and the unknown. Education. I think the greatest thing you could do is, anybody still has young children to raise is just watch them closely. You don't have to get paranoid about it, but you can check in periodically, how things going, any issues you want to talk about. You can just watch for something subtle. There could be something subtle. If there's something you could, always there's my daughter sees a counselor right now that just kind of checks in and just make sure everything's okay and there's not any underlying. I was concerned there was some underlying something they knew about me. Well, they said they didn't, so we'll see in years to come. And I don't want to harm them, don't want to, scar them emotionally or anything for the rest of their lives. So,
Don, go ahead.
Do you think, because you kind of said earlier that you'd known from the very beginning,
Right.
but that you were kind of like going along, waiting for things to work themselves out, and then like 2 kids later, do you think if your parents had been asking you, how you doing, is there anything you want to talk about?
Do you want to be a girl? No. No. Why would you say that? Why would you say it? Do you see that dress I had stashed in my room?
Like, do you think that would have maybe changed your path?
I mean, it's potential. I know I'm sure that I would have denied it. At least initially. There are at least 2 girls in group that their mother had come to them and asked them specifically, do you think maybe you'd rather be a girl? And they're like, oh no, not at all. It's really hard to say. I think at least me bringing this out to them would be at a different level right now. I don't know. I guess I don't regret, and I cannot regret, will not even entertain the thought of anything, to this day. I love my children. I told my wife, or to say ex-wife, before we were married, what I knew at the time, which I was still, I don't know, whatever, married at 20 or something like that. And I just thought, okay, yeah, cross-dresser, yeah, that seems safe. Somewhere in the middle. And it's a huge spectrum within, just cross-dressing. Even though I, being younger, I'd go to sleep and figure, okay, I'll wake up and I'll be where I'm supposed to be. I just figured I'd go to sleep, wake up, I'd be a girl, and it just didn't work. But I kept wishing, kept dreaming, and it just didn't really work.
You just started to talk about that.
Pardon me?
Your wife knew?
To a limited degree. I mean, I wasn't sure if I was going this far either, but then you can be in denial with yourself. You can lie to yourself. And once you get over that and face it and have to make choices and there is a comfort zone. And to feel like you're free and living freely is really pretty awesome. Yes, yeah, right now, yeah. She's got a committed relationship. I like her boyfriend. So he's a very nice guy, and it's just strange, she's gonna have, a boyfriend that comes into a situation like this, and he's okay with it. So if you're confident enough in yourself, then it shouldn't be a problem. You got your own space. Everybody's got their own space, and we can all co-share. We can all go forward with great positive things. But does anybody know about gender? That really gender is a separate issue than sexual preference. Like Oprah said 2 years ago, she had Jenny Lynn Boylan on her that wrote the book She's Not There. That's a great book. It doesn't go into much background, but it's very positive. It goes forward. And Oprah was like, wow, I never even thought of questioning my gender. I mean, I did all the time since age 4. And I would imagine some people haven't.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because the last time you were here, you talked about some of the things you went through in your childhood, the things you used to do and feel, so that you could kind of deal with that gender identity issue. Do you remember talking about clothing and doing that and waiting for...
I used to hide and dress all the time as much as I could. And by age 14, when it came to definitely surface, and I kept waiting. Okay, go away. All right. This is a process. It's not going away. You think I had enough, to say intellect to recognize that, but I couldn't seem to express myself. I don't know. It's just some kind of inner sense. But it would be, time for the family to go away. I got a cough. I'm not feeling good. I think I'm going to be sick. So I'll stay home. I get a chance to do my thing, and I just wait down to the last minute. Okay, they're coming around the corner, and yeah, but I was pretty good. You get it down to routine, and probably almost got seriously busted once, but I guess until I come out to my sisters, then I'll probably have the real story, and they'd probably, I had 2 sisters. I mean, it was kind of good, It's just like, are you borrowing my things? And it's just like, you had to be, and I'm thinking.
So when you say your routine, you'd go and use, wear your sister's clothes, put them on, stand in the mirror, makeup, the whole deal.
Yeah, and then just do something, just normal, read a book or do whatever. It just was an inner feeling that just felt at rest, relaxed, at peace. So of course they were. I was also like 5'1" and 10th grade, so that was pretty cool. And they were both taller than me, so a lot of stuff went into storage. So I got to borrow from the storage unit.
So they never knew what was missing.
Anybody have any final questions?
So do your sisters know or no?
Right now, no. I wanted to tell them. I have two first cousins that are awesome, great support. I have two brothers and two sisters. I have not told them. My younger sister lost her husband in August, and right now I'm helping her with things that she needs to do. It's like I don't want to burden her. So it has to. I figured it has to come out before spring. With hormone and all that other thing, I figured, okay, it's bound to come out, but right now we're still trying to play sweatshirts and stuff. It's getting a little warm, so it's going to have to come out to say, close to immediately. But I was hoping that, that it could wait till after everything was done and she was in a better place, but soon, definitely soon.
How far along in your hormone therapy are you?
I've been on hormones for a year. Been on antigen blockers for maybe 16 months or something like that. So, you've got to watch it. I mean, the doctors, you can do this on your own. You still need to get, psychologists or psychiatrists involved in it because there are standards. It's called the Harry Benjamin standards. Before you go for surgery, you need a write-off from at least two, mental health providers. And they have to tell you that you're stable enough, because you'd be surprised how many people think they are when they're really not. And once surgery's done, it's not reversible. And that's happened. People kind of do their own thing. I wanted conservative to double check 110%, and that's why I went with U of M. And they watch you. There's a lot of health issues. With the antigen blockers, you've got to watch your liver enzymes, potassium, electrolytes, just some of the lighter stuff. But then, because you have to try to introduce as little estrogen as possible. They want you to be within a range. My range is doing pretty good. Development's doing pretty good. And there's still the threat of cancers. Breast cancers can be pretty prominent. So, yeah, I'm waiting for the imposition that I have to go for a baseline mastectomy, and I'm not mastectomy,
mammogram.
Just the mammogram. I'm sorry. And not looking forward to that because we're still pretty tender for, a year later. Let me tell you, when you go from 2 milligrams, for a month, that's like nothing. 4 milligrams, nothing. All of a sudden, okay, we're taking it to 6 milligrams because they're watching your estrase level, which is at 173 right now, and they want you between like 125 and 350 or something like that. It's like 6 milligrams, nothing. Even though emotionally I don't feel torn. I don't feel like a piece of taffy being pulled from one side to the other. It feels like peace. Emotions are a lot more extreme, but they're at least kind of consistent with where they've always been. And I'm better with that. And 3 days after 6 milligrams of estradiol, it's just like, oh God, don't touch me, don't even come within, don't even disrupt the air around me. And it's just like, it's like, back off. I mean, you walk through a crowd like this. Okay. I think I got hives. I'm scratchy. Yes. So it could be TMI, but
How long the process is it?
It can almost be what you want it to be. The most significant part is that you need to live full-time for at least a year before surgery. But if you've had some other extended stay, which I believe I could petition for less time, is if you've really come to terms, who you've told, how far out you are. I mean, I live it 24/7 when I can, so I'm kind of really, definitely, literally straddling the fence. And probably on a short term, if you were in a good mental health state, probably a year of getting everything going, a year on board with full time. So 2 years. Mine was 6 years. So, and I'm happy with that. I still have my children in the forefront of what's important.
Go ahead, Don.
Is your job impacted?
I don't think so. Again, I'm my own boss, so I have my own company.
I'm sorry, where do you work?
I live south of Detroit in Grosseto, so I have my own construction company.
Okay.
So for years, you'd be surprised. I'm kind of like a design. I'm out there, okay? I don't do the average. I say, if they say it can't be done, call me. Because even with my life, and then which I think I've just carried into my business, is I see things as they could be or as they should be. So what I see, if I come into a room and I see proportions, I see what literal changes can be made. You know, for that 20% more, you can just totally evolve. And with all that I have done over the years, I mean, if I could count how many times, you know, most of my clients, you know, I'm usually dealing with, we'll just say the woman of the house usually is down to the details, so usually her and I are working out everything, design, blah, 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 and by the time I'm done, they're like, wow, you're really in touch with the feminine side. I go, yeah, just job requirement. You know, boy, that bathroom has everything. I don't have to worry about anything. You know, we got lighting, we've got no shadows for makeup, we got it together.
That's excellent.
So hopefully with that appreciation, and I sell some work as Jill, I come up here and, you know, I'm kind of preparing to actually move up here. And so I'm telling people, hey, you know, take a number, you know, I'll be up here in, you know, less than 2 or 3 years or so, you know, potentially by the end of this year. It depends how things go at home. And I don't have a problem going forward and working. And most people, if they get what they're paying for and then feel like it's even more, it doesn't really matter.
That's great. Okay, one last question. Go ahead.
And I have to ask this because I have tried to be very quiet, but I have a sister and that's bisexual, very open. And I think one of the things that we're struggling with as our family is never knowing who's coming to dinner. You know, I mean, just when you think you got a handle on one, then she switches altogether. You know, one day you might have Susan sitting at the table, and then the next day it might be John. And I think it's that, I mean, and she's very open with her bisexual. And so I mean, it's just, I think it's a struggle for our family because you just never know who's coming through the door.
I've had more of a hard time understanding bisexuality as well. And Kent has friends who are bisexual, and so he explains it as they're attracted to individuals. It's not the gender. That's not what they're attracted to. And that makes sense to me, I guess. That's the best way I've heard it explained, I guess. I don't know. Anybody else?
They're just open. I mean, I've had friends tell me that I'm undecided. I'm not undecided. I'm just open. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I judge somebody from the heart first, and when the heart's in the right place, that's all that matters to me. So,
William wants to follow up on that.
Yeah, I have a boyfriend who actually isn't strictly gay, and he's not considering himself to be bi because he feels the term bisexual almost sounds as if you're just in it for the sex, because it seems like you bring whatever home because that's what you can get, but that's not at all what he describes it as. That's how he feels about it, and he actually looked it up online and was digging through page after page of things, and he came across someone who called it pansexuality. And what he feels it as is you fall in love with a person. You don't fall in love with the sex. You fall in love with the person. And if they're a guy, they're a guy. If they're a girl, they're a girl. So, I mean, bisexuality was something I didn't understand at all until I met him, and he kind of described it more as that. And I started to understand it more, but it still is one of those shaky topics with a lot of people that I know. It's a hard topic to understand, but there's many different views at what it is.
I think that kind of goes back to our continuum, because people always want to be on one side, you know, in one box or the other, and we have the hardest time understanding all of this room in between, and bisexuality would be right in that middle ground, that gray area that so many of us, you know, our society, I think, has a hard time with that. We as human beings have a hard time with, we think in dichotomies, we don't always think in continuums. I always think in continuums, so.
But if you're supposed to be open-minded, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Right. Right. I'm just saying, you know.
Alfred Kinsey brought that up 50 years ago,
yeah.
and we're still struggling with it. So it's obviously difficult to get our.
I mean, how open-minded are we as a society when we tend to do everything in a box? But Okay. I'm going to have to wrap it up. Not that kind of box, but I'm going to have to wrap it up. Let's thank our guests today. I really appreciate what I see here.